Hey guys, this is Mr. A. Crizzy here, and today's movie review is going to be on the 2007 psychological thriller film. It's also a teen movie too, and that's going to be on Disturbia. Disturbia is directed by DJ Corso and stars Shia LaBeouf, David Morris, Sarah Romer, and Carrie Ann Moss. And the music score was composed by G.F. Zenley, whatever you want to pronounce his name, but yeah, so the movie is basically about a teenager named Cal or Cal, whatever. But yeah, the movie basically follows a teenager who is placed under house arrest after assaulting his school teacher, and then of course he begins to spy. He begins to spy on his neighbors, believing one of them is a possible serial killer. And then of course, he has to do whatever he can to solve this, and hopefully, and hopefully find out who the real possible serial killer is. So, yeah. So, this movie came out in 2007, and back in August last month, I watched this movie on demand before going to bed, and so I first heard of this movie kind of years ago, but then I started to look back on it earlier this year, I think not too long ago. And so the movie did interest me a lot, and for the most part, I actually thought Disturbia was actually a really underrated, really awesome, great movie from 2007. Yeah, I actually thought this movie was so good, and it's definitely underrated when you think about it, because if you look up YouTube, you can definitely see how underrated Disturbia is, and that I really think this movie does deserve a lot more love. I think it does, because this movie is actually very interesting to believe. Of course, it's a teenage boy who basically goes under house arrest, and for assaulting his teacher, and then of course he gets these binoculars that he looks through on his neighbors, who is believing that one of them is a possible serial killer. Yeah. Even this movie also had a pretty cool soundtrack too. It has some good songs, and the movie was made by DreamWorks Pictures while distributed by Paramount Pictures. And since Ivan Reitman's actually the executive producer for this movie, his company has actually made this movie too. I thought Ivan Reitman actually did a pretty good job being the executive producer, even though he was only credited there just to be there. Yeah. And plus, this movie was also partially inspired by an Alfred Hitchcock movie called Rear Window, which I never even heard of Rear Window, but I know Alfred Hitchcock, and oh yeah, and plus, since this movie came out in 2007, April of 2007, this movie's already 15 years old. Yeah, pretty cool. And of course, I thought the writing itself, the story and the writing itself, the screenplay, it's actually very interesting. I thought the story and the screenplay was very interesting, because the story for this movie was actually by Christopher Landon, and the screenwriters for Disturbia is not only Christopher Landon, but also Carl Ellsworth, which Christopher Landon, who would later direct these really good movies. Yep, Christopher Landon, who worked on these movies: Happy Death Day, Happy Death Day to You, and Freaky. Yep, Freaky. Yeah, so I thought Christopher Landon actually did a pretty good job writing this movie, and also Carl Ellsworth. I know Carl Ellsworth. He's also known for directing. Oh yeah, because you were kind of already see it, by the way, because I actually meant he actually wrote this movie Unhinged. Because Carl Ellsworth not only wrote Disturbia, but he also wrote Unhinged as well. Yeah, with Russell Crowe. Yep. And I thought Carl Ellsworth's writing for this movie was very interesting, because I think both Christopher Landon and Carl Ellsworth make a great team together when they were both working on and writing this movie, because they actually did a very good job writing this movie, and especially Christopher Landon and Carl Ellsworth. Even though Christopher Landon's films can be hit or miss back then, before these three movies came out, Christopher Landon actually worked on Paranormal Activity: The Marked Ones, which I never even saw that movie. I would never will. But yeah. So overall, aside from all that, Disturbia was a great movie, a great underrated movie that definitely deserves more appreciation. And I'm gonna give Disturbia 4 out of 5 stars. So if you haven't seen Disturbia yet, then I recommend giving it a watch. So there you have it, guys. That's going to be it for my movie review on Disturbia. And that's going to be it for this video. So make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. And as always, thanks for watching. And until next time, this is Mr. A. Crizzy saying goodbye, everybody, and that's about it.